How's it going, guys? Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to my review of the Magnum Research Baby Desert Eagle 3. We're going to talk all about how this gun has behaved for me, how I've enjoyed it, some of the things I might have to say critical about it, and in the meantime, just generally give you some recommendations on how good I think it is. Stick around. So we're going to talk about my experience with this gun, some of the upsides, some of the downsides, some of the successes it's had, some of the challenges I've had with it, and kind of what I think it's good for. In addition to that, we'll try to cover as many specs as we can, talk about some of its origins as far as design is concerned. But before we do that, let's just give you a quick overview of the gun. So, the Magnum Research Desert Eagle 3. What we've got is basically a double single action pistol. As you can see here, we got a hammer exposed. We've also got this safety slash decocker, and it is ambidextrous. What that means is, from either side, I can decock that hammer, putting it into a state of safety. Then, of course, in order to fire, I've got to push that back up with my thumb, index finger, or however else I decide to use that before I'm ready to take my first shot. At that point, I can either cock it to take my shot, or if I'd rather, I can go ahead and shoot from that double action, long, heavy trigger pull. Now I say long and heavy, but what do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and put that on my trigger scale here and see what kind of a weight we get with this. So from double action, putting that more or less at the center of the trigger, and that's the break right there, and we have got, well, it is maxed out, so I don't actually know how heavy that is. It's very heavy right there at the end. It takes quite a bit of force to break through that there at the end. Now, if we were to take that to single action, resetting the trigger puller, let's go ahead and see what that comes to. Trying to get that centered once again in the trigger face. And we've got a very standard, about 4.5 pound pull, close to 5. We'll do maybe one more of those just to get an average for you. And it looks like right around 4 3/4 to 5. So pretty standard there, and definitely manageable. Talking about the trigger itself, you see a very almost exaggerated trigger bow there. That is probably one of the most curved triggers I've used in quite a long time. The effect that has is it kind of locks your finger into the trigger. That can be a good or a bad thing depending on what you prefer, how you like your triggers to feel, particularly in the double action mode. It does help to lock your finger in. It may add to the weight or the perceived weight of the trigger, whereas in single action mode, it's barely noticeable. Getting to that safety slash decocker. What we have here is a slide mounted safety and decocker. I think that's got some big downsides. I would probably prefer it, if I'm going to have it at all, to be on the frame. However, I don't want it in the way of my thumbs. So I guess it's kind of maybe a no-win scenario, really, for those of us that are used to having no safety or decocker on our guns. Like every other feature on the gun, however, you can definitely get used to it. One of the things that I found to be a challenge, and some of my friends found to be a challenge, is sweeping that safety off when you're bringing the gun up to target from that safe position. So here we are in safe. In order to get up onto target and push the safety off at the same time, what I need to do is, since my thumb is very close to that and I can actually reach it, I more or less just press forward, like so, taking that safety off and pressing to pull the trigger. Then re-establishing the safety, I have to use my support thumb. Using my firing thumb just won't work. I can't get the leverage on it without completely breaking my grip and bending it down like that. I prefer to use the support hand, which makes it very, very easy. Now, other shooters I know pretty much need to use the support hand, the support thumb rather, to get that safety off in the first place. They just can't reach it with their firing hand. Smaller hands simply can't do it. Getting into a few more of the features of the gun, you can see we've got a great big, almost exaggerated beaver tail there, which serves to really protect the web of your hand from both the slide, which, yeah, definitely is pretty high up there, so you're not really at risk, but really it helps to protect your hand from the hammer. And I have gotten hammer bite before. It's no fun. So the nice extended beaver tail is certainly a nice feature. We also got a little bit of a spur right there on the hammer, as well as you can see that it is skeletonized. Now, another feature worth talking about is the slide itself. What's really interesting about this gun, and probably what makes it so enjoyable to shoot, is that light, small, and very low mass slide. As you can see there, the barrel is more or less nested down into the frame with the slide kind of coming up over it. This is a feature we see on both the Jericho, which this kind of shares a lineage with. A few more details on the slide. You see that it's got some interesting cutouts to it, which make it pretty nice looking. It's got some real cool aesthetics. But we also see that here on the rear end of the slide, right where that safety / decocker is, we see a little bit of cutouts there for grasping onto, but that doesn't do much for the user, and I'll tell you why. What we really experience when we reach back here, we don't touch those serrations hardly at all. What we feel are the safety / decocker right there, which is a little bit weird, I have to say. That said, given that the slide has such low mass, particularly back here, I guess it is probably a good thing that we have something to hook onto. It's almost like the H&K VP9 and those little wings that it has to sort of assist you in doing that, in racking the slide. These really do kind of serve that same purpose. Me personally, it's not my favorite thing, but yeah, I can see how it does help to make the gun a little bit more successful in operation. Sights on it, super basic, as you can tell there. The rear sight does appear to be fully adjustable. I really have no complaints about the sights or how quickly they acquire or how they work in general. The gun has a great big pronounced slide stop / release there on the left side for right-handed shooters to use with your thumb. So pressing up on that helps you lock it back, throw it down to throw that slide forward. And again, like I said, very big, very pronounced. You're definitely not going to miss that by any means. That is also the takedown pin. And the way that that works is we pull the slide back just enough so that this dot and that dot match up, the one here on the frame and the one there on the slide. We pull them back just to that point right there. And then we come back on the other side where you can see that that pin pops through right there. We use that to push through, and it takes a little bit of effort. Might want to use a nice hard object if you've got one handy. Pull that pin through like that, and that is how our gun breaks down, just like so. At that point, it looks very familiar. Our recoil spring pops out, our barrel pops out, takes down and reassembles in a very familiar fashion. It's worth noting as I reassemble the gun that the frame itself is all steel on this particular version of the gun. There are also polymer versions of it that you can pick up if you prefer that. The all steel version, in my opinion, is the way to go. The reason I say that is that steel frame really helps to absorb the big 45 ACP cartridge and the recoil of it, making it a really pleasant shooter. I think this is a great gun for home defense. I can put this in the hand of ladies. I put it in the hand of my niece and had her shoot it quite a bit. She actually really enjoyed the recoil impulse on that and the sensation of it. It was quite enjoyable to her. And I can see a lot of people enjoying it. Again, it fills up your hand. It's heavy in your hand. It feels like a big chunk of metal. And so when you're firing that big 45 ACP cartridge through it, it's all absorbed through the gun, or I should say a lot of it is absorbed through the gun, which again, just makes for a really pleasant shooting experience. If you didn't already notice it, we do have the Picatinny rails right there on the front of the gun. So attach your light, your laser, whatever, making this a fully squared away home security gun. We also see that the grip right here is wrapped around by this polymer sort of covering. That's all polymer with a little bit of texturing to that side right there. And it looks like the Magnum Research Eagle logo right there in the polymer, just for some cool style and aesthetic. The gun comes with two 10-round magazines, one of which I have had some issues with at one point during testing. However, the folks that were at Magnum Research decided to go ahead and send me an extra magazine so that I could determine if it was an ammo issue, a gun issue, or in fact the magazine issue. I marked the magazine that was misbehaving. It turned out that it was just that one magazine. It could very well be that it only needed the cleaning. However, they got it replaced for me. These two magazines have worked perfectly since that point. Looking at the construction of the magazines, you can see that we have two little cutouts right here, one sort of at the halfway point indicating what our ammunition level is, and one down here at the bottom. When you see brass there, that's when you know that the magazine is completely full. Here's what the gun looks like with the magazine fully seated and in the gun. Has this nice little curving sweep to it, locking your fingers into place, and it does have a really nice full grip to it. There's our magazine release. It's also very tactile with a little bit of jimping or texturing right there on it. And the magazines do drop right free, which is a really nice feature, obviously. We don't want any of those magazine disconnect safeties. I hate those dang things. But that mag release does work well. It appears like it's probably ambidextrous or swappable from one side to the other based on the way that that's shaped. My guess is, I don't know how to do it, but I suppose there's a tool you would put through here, turn that, or unscrew something or other and swap it. I'm sure the user manual says how to do that. All right, let's take a look at the box, see what's inside of it and how it comes when you purchase it. First, looking at the box itself, we see these little sliding clasps right here. And we also see that on either side we have these little holes which allow you to lock the box shut, either with actual padlocks or zip ties if you prefer. We see these little marks, grooves really, on the top of the box. They're also on the bottom side, allowing you to stack this box with other like boxes. They kind of lock in place by way of those grooves. Looking at the back side, we see some nice steel piano hinges there, helping the hinge stay pretty solid. And we see some flats that allow you to stack the box straight up, or set it straight up just like that, if you prefer to do that. Then looking on the inside of the box, open it up, we see that the molded, or the padding I should say, on the inside is not molded, it's not cut, that is to say, for the gun or the magazines. It's very generic sort of padding, sort of like an eggshell crate type of padding. Nothing wrong with it really, except if you want your gun to sort of, stick in a very specific place, you might want to make some alterations to it, but for general purpose, this is perfectly adequate. There's the gun, of course, unloaded with one magazine in the gun and the spare magazine right there. In addition to that, of course, we have additional pieces. Some literature down here. It looks like your user manual, the obligatory gun lock right there, which I've actually found to be really handy, not just for locking, but for a number of different things. We've got our cleaning rod right there, as well as a cleaning brush, and a little warning right there. I believe there's probably also some warranty information down here, and of course my shipping info is down there because that's where I happen to store it. But that is basically what you get in the box. I would say that it's about all you're going to need, and nothing really missing. A lot of you guys who are familiar with the IWI Jericho definitely see the similarities. In fact, you're saying that is basically a Jericho. And most folks I show this to think it's a Jericho. Why would you think that? Because they are almost exactly the same gun. Now, I don't own a Jericho. I don't think I've ever shot a Jericho, so there's very little I can say about that gun in comparison with this one. However, I do want to acknowledge the relationship that these two guns have. The Desert Eagle 3, the baby Desert Eagle 3, and that IWI Jericho. Yeah, this is more or less a version of that gun. However, this one is provided to us by way of Magnum Research, the other one by way of IWI. Now, to talk about my experience with the gun, I have seen a few malfunctions. I would say all of those were a result of the bad magazine that I had. Again, perhaps a good cleaning would have fixed it, don't really know. However, the folks at Magnum Research took care of me, got me another magazine. The gun has run pretty much perfectly ever since, with maybe a slight hang up here and there, but none of the same issues that I had with that bad magazine. I've put upwards of 600 rounds through the gun in the time that I've had it. Pretty much all of that has been Freedom Munitions ammo. Thanks again to Freedom Munitions for supplying me with ammo for this test. Use code TLBS to get 5% off your order. I put a good variety of different types of Freedom Munition ammo through it, including hollow points, including round nose, including some match stuff. And it's all run about the same through this gun, which is good news. I've also put some of my own stash through it to confirm that it'll take different brands as well. And it does. It runs very well with pretty much all types of ammo. Now, Magnum Research did send me the gun for testing and review. This is not one that I purchased. However, my opinion of it is pretty high. And I would say that if you're looking for a good solid 45 ACP, the new Baby Desert Eagle 3 in 45 is a very good choice to make, particularly if you want it for home security. That rail up front definitely helps with that. Now, I guess there are some downsides to going with something like this over maybe a 1911, which has tons of parts available in the aftermarket and also tons of holsters available. You don't have to have something custom made for this or something more universal that you would use for your handgun if you chose something like a 1911. There are a number of other great 45s out there, obviously. Most of them are very good choices too. But I would easily put this gun right here right near the top of all of those. It's solid, it's really well built, it's really easy to shoot. If you enjoy shooting 45, you're probably going to really enjoy shooting this 45. Guys, that about sums it up for my review of the Magnum Research Baby Desert Eagle 3 in 45 ACP. I've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I'm a late Boy Scout. See you later.